Good morning, everybody. It's me today. Hopefully you read that Vince is home. He unfortunately came down with COVID, but that'll give him more time to figure out who gets those Jim Gaffigan tickets. We have a emotional video. Maggie, why don't we start with that? Once you get that up and running. What's going on, Heather? How are you? Hey, Christy's here. Oh, there's also breakfast in the back for this large crowd. Oh, just yeah, let's probably set it up later. There we go. Yep, let's get the lights. One other thing, we've got two things we want to talk about from a kind of a legal perspective and a compliance. And the first one is social media policy. We talked about this a year ago because we had some issues with how people were sharing our listings and how we were sharing other companies' listings. And so we went to the Real Estate Commission. We talked to Greg Lemon, the director, about it. We talked about it, and we kind of figured out the best way to do it. Now, you got to remember that when you're sharing listing information, it always has to be able to link back to an IDX feed. What's an IDX feed, Scott? So an IDX feed is our website is an IDX feed. Zillow is an IDX feed. All that means is that the information is coming directly from the MLS, and it's not a listing that you've created within there. So if you want to post a link to a listing on, say, your Facebook page or your own website or something like that, you always have to have it link back to our webpage, your own webpage, as long as it gets a feed from the IDX, from the MLS, basically. And that allows it to get the proper notice that it is a listing within the MLS and who the listing information is. Something else is if you're going to share something on Facebook, in our discussion with Greg Lemon about it, is that it's a violation of a rule to advertise a property that you don't have a listing agreement with. And so if you advertise it on your Facebook page, of course, and you don't give credit to the actual listing company, then you've basically violated the rule as to the Real Estate Commission. You've also violated the MLS rules because you have to have permission to basically post someone else's the property unless you give the proper basically credit to that. And so, Maggie, we have a form, right? Or a thing that we put out last year regarding this. And we're going to send it out again just to give you a good idea. But, you know, think about it this way. If I'm going to do a Facebook post and I want to highlight, you know, the $3.5 million property that just came on, I can talk about it because it's a great, you know, $3.5 million property just came on the market. But then I have to note within that message that it's not my listing. I have to note that it's an NP Dodge listing, or it's a, you know, Better Homes and Gardens listing or something like that. And if it's one of our own agents' listings, you probably should ask for permission before you're doing it. But if you don't ask for permission from one of our own agents, you have to give them credit at least. You have to say it's, you know, this agent's listing, not yours. So it doesn't look like you're claiming it as your own, because that is a violation of MLS rules and just not good policy for us within the company. Let's give credit to the true listing agent on it so it doesn't look like it's yours when it isn't. If you want to draw attention to it, great. Everyone loves that. But make sure you're giving proper credit to it, even if it's our own Berkshire listing. Second thing we wanted to talk about, Heather. Go green.
So, in regards to your social media, once I get this rolling,
Just push it once.
I pushed it once and it's orange. And it's red. I just did. I can scream. Here, take Scott's for now. Okay. So I've got a question for you, Scott, in regards to social media. So say I'm an agent and you are posting my house on Facebook and it's irritating me. Can I request you have it taken down? Since you didn't have my permission, technically?
Technically. Why do we have these then? Okay. You know, if you're linking to an IDX feed under the MLS rules, we have the right to share that information. Just like NP Dodge can't tell us, hey, you can't show any of your listings on our website. And we can't say, Dodge, you can't show any of our listings on your website. The MLS is cooperative. And that's why it has a specific rule that says you can share that information. The only difference is you have to give credit there. That's the point. So as long as you're giving credit, then you're complying with the MLS rules, which allows for cooperation and sharing of listings.
Okay, so there's nothing I
So
can do. I
they-
can just be
it-
upset with you.
Yeah, you can be upset and you can say you have to give me credit, but you can't tell someone to take it down as long as they're linking back to an IDX feed, because that's the rule. That is the MLS compliance rules.
Okay.
Question on Zoom,
Okay.
and I'm going to read it. It's long. Is that even if we are just taking a couple photos while showing a listing to a buyer of ours?
Well, that creates a different issue, which is a right to privacy. When we sign listing agreements, we get permission from the seller to allow them to take pictures of our house. We say, yes, here I'm Berkshire Hathaway. It's okay. You can take these pictures of my house, you can put it up, but you know, all the privacy is there. You know, what I've given you the right to do it. I'm not giving everyone else who's trudging through my house the right to take any pictures that they want. And we had a issue, boy, about 4 years. You remember this one? About 4 years ago, when someone took a picture of their recently deceased father in the house. You don't remember that? Yeah. Then we had another one where someone used a house and shot a commercial there, or for a news story. That was another one that was a bit of a problem because we didn't have permission to do that. And so really you don't have a right to take, you know, you can take pictures of a house outside of it just like the county can, but pictures on the interior, really you don't have permission to do, and you don't have permission to post that. Now I know it happens all the time, but it is a potential violation of privacy rights and something it potentially could go to the real estate commission. I know that Joe Gerke had mentioned that it was something that's being talked about at the real estate commission as to how to kind of tap down on some of those issues.
Tell
Scott.
me about this recently deceased father that was just laying in the house and they took a
Picture of, it was a picture of the recently
Oh,
deceased father. So it was very emotional for him. We've got dead body ones too, Scott, if you want to talk about those, but that's longer ago.
Life of real estate agent.
See my real estate agent that decided they want to see how firm the mattress was, and they got caught on camera too.
Right. That's only because cameras are coming. I think that's been happening for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years.
I'm assuming that applies to videos as well.
Yeah.
Video, yeah, definitely. You know, they have the right in their house. They have a right to privacy. They have a right to video you. You know, they don't have to disclose that you're on tape if they don't want to. But you, the other way, taking a video of their house without their permission is, you know, a violation of their privacy. That's a criminal issue. I mean, that's not a real estate issue, although it would be because it would be part of the negligence rules that you're supposed to follow. Ryan.
Potter.
So what about those people that want you to do like a video tour or walkthrough of that house? Do we need to get permission prior to going in there?
As long as you're not posting it. I mean, if you're doing it on the behalf of your client, taking him through it, and it's between those two, as if they were there doing it listing, once you take it and make it public, that's when you've kind of gone beyond the scope of what's okay.
Bill.
That's the exterior of a publicly facing house. That's okay.
What about posting pictures like for an open house to say, hey, come see? Can you do that?
You're doing the open house for somebody, so you're taking a picture of it saying, hey, I'm here. I think that's okay too, because they're opening their house up at that point, and they're assuming people are going to be walking through it. You're assuming that they understand that they're going to lose some of that privacy, and you're just taking a picture of yourself, marketing the fact that, hey, I've got this house for open right now. It's really stuff where we're going, and I know that they're funny. I mean, there's lots of things that we see that are very, very, very funny, which is, you know, but that's someone's house and they don't think it's funny. And they, you know, sometimes you're showing things that you probably shouldn't be showing. Next.
All right, so we are doing masterminds again. Every month we meet about 14 groups of us, and so this is our latest issue. So this summer we were selling houses left and right, no inspections were to be had. In the meantime, our contract has changed and no one really has focused on the new terms of the inspection guidelines and timelines. So just so you know, they have changed, they are different. You have 14 days to get that home inspection done. and have something to the seller in writing by 5 o'clock that day, not business days, calendar days. You no longer have 3 days to respond to those inspection requests. That timeline is now gone by the wayside.
Correct.
And you have to have all items completed and finalized by the 18th day by 5 p.m. or that offer is considered null and void and the earnest deposit to be returned back to the buyer.
I did kind of a flow chart last night, and I'll put
He
this
likes
into
the
a
flow charts. I like that.
It's easy for me. It's the only
Whatever
way my
works.
mind thinks. It has to be logical. And so I'll put this together and make it look nice. But I mean, really, when you think about it, it's sort of like, are you going to have an inspection? Yes, no. No, we're done, right? That's over the inspection period. We just move on. Yes, okay. Now we have, unless you shorten it, which you can shorten it, but if you don't shorten it, we got 14 days to get those inspections done. We can have a home inspection under the contract as written. It's a broad right to do whatever inspections they want to do. So they can have that structural engineer come out. They can have the,
Sewer scope,
sewer
radon.
scope, the mold guy, everything they want in those 14 days. Then once those 14 days are up or sooner, they then send it over to the seller. And again, if we're doing our path, we can, so if buyer does nothing, if the 14 days run and the buyer has not sent anything out at all in writing, buyer's bought that house as is, they're accepting. If the buyer says, no, we don't like this, they can reject it. And then we're done again. We're out, contract's over, money goes back, over and done with. If the buyer then goes, well, hold on, I'll take the house, but I want these things done. Now we've got till the 18th day to come to an agreement between buyer and seller as to what that means, or the contract terminates. If nothing's in writing by the 18th day, contract's terminated, money's back. If there's an agreement, it has to be reached by the 18th day before 5 p.m. So you've got basically 18 days to get this fully worked out and an agreement reached, or the contract's going to be terminated.
The work doesn't have to be done.
No, that's just,
No.
you're just coming to an agreement as to what, on that 18th day by 5 p.m., you better have something in writing that says, here's what's going to happen. Because if there's nothing in writing,
Unless you guys were to do an extension of
right,
inspection
you can
timeline
always do
deadlines.
addendums. Addendums are there to change dates and timelines and everything else.
Right,
Dick.
Dick?
Is the title company required to refund the money?
No.
That's the problem we've had with the title company.
Right. So there's our contract, and then there's Nebraska law for title companies. And there's two ways of looking at those rules. Some title companies take the position, ATS is one of them, and I'm not saying that they're wrong doing this. I actually completely see their point, which is under Nebraska law, it says if I'm an escrow officer and I want to release money, I have to have something signed by both buyer and seller directing me to release it. They're saying that their problem is, which is a good point, which is they don't know what the timelines are. They don't know what we agreed to. They don't know what came between the parties. And so they're saying, hey, just give us something in writing saying release the money. Now, legally speaking, under the contract, you'd have the right to say, we're entitled to get that money back. The title company has to get something in writing or a court order that says release the funds to these people. And so that's the position they take, which is legal under Nebraska law for title companies and escrow companies as a holding money. And then our contract is what our legal right is to say we're entitled to this money.
So they're not legally
And-
obligated to follow the contract.
Right. And Dick's
No.
question,
Thank you.
and Dick's question was our title companies obligated to give the money back based on just what the contract says? And the
Answer is no.
answer is no, they're
Yes.
not. Daryl?
I mentioned the radon is out of there as well.
Right.
We're getting there.
Right.
It's on the list. Jennifer?
What?
Okay, can you address when somebody gets an inspection for informational purposes only? I've had this come up twice this week,
Okay.
Yeah.
and they're asking me after that, can they ask for anything to be done?
Well,
There's a few things. Did the
yeah,
inspection?
this is truly a loaded question, because what we think what informational purposes only might not mean what they think what informational purposes only, and it definitely doesn't mean what certain attorneys think what informational purposes only mean. If you really want to do your job right, write what you mean, not just leave it there. So what does informational purposes only mean? Well, does that mean that I have the right to still get out of the contract, or does that mean I'm taking it as is? Well, truly, you're trying to take it as is, but a lot of people believe that it also reserves the right to reject it, saying it's not, I don't want to buy this and I'm going to walk away from it, but they're not reserving the right to come back to the seller and say, hey, make these repairs. And so the best way of doing it is to actually write in what you mean by that, which is, hey, we're going to do an inspection, but we're not going to elect, I think it's 18.14, something like that, the right to have repairs made. It just means that we're going to either accept it or we're going to reject it or we're going to walk away. If we just leave it for informational purposes only, it leaves it up to something that can be, debated and it's not clear. So you can never hurt yourself being very, very clear as to what you mean.
What does the seller do then if they come back and say for informational purposes only? How can the seller CYA with that ambiguous statement?
So you could say something like that, seller, for informational purposes only, buyer cannot cancel contract unless any major defects are found exceeding $3,000.
Right.
Something of that nature. So you could put a cap limit on or a minimum on what kind of repairs would be allowed them to exit that
It's
contract.
a perfect opportunity for us to do our job, right? Let's talk to our seller and go, what do you want? What do you want to see this? How do you want to see this play out? Do you want to put a cap on how much you'd be willing to contribute? Do you want to say absolutely nothing? Are you prepared to say absolutely nothing? Are you prepared to give a certain amount of money? Or is it just take it or leave it? And are we holding to that, take it or leave it? Or, that's what your discussion needs to be, because that's what you want in writing and to make it very, very clear. And if really the point is that, they said for informational purposes only, if I'm a list agent, I'm going back to my seller and go, we need to clarify what they mean by that. We need to know what we really want here. Are we basically saying that this is just for their information? They don't have the right to get out of this contract. They're buying it as is. Then we should say that, because really, if they're buying the house without any right to get out with their inspection, just do the inspection after you close. What's the point of doing it now? Let's close, do it the next day. If it's for informational purposes only.
As a buyer's agent, though, you should always make sure you're writing in there inspection for informational purposes only, but buyer reserves the right to cancel this contract if inspection is not found satisfactory and earnest deposit to be returned to buyer.
Correct. That's the other side of it.
But to answer Jennifer's question, technically, a lot of times these listing agents would rather you ask rather than walk away sometimes. So I would call them up and say, hey, the roof was found deemed unsatisfactory. Would your seller consider putting in a claim? So yes, you can ask technically, but they don't have to do anything to fulfill that agreement. So
Bill?
After 3 informational purposes in a row only that came back and asked for repairs, I've started putting that clause in that Heather, you mentioned, when I'm representing the seller, is that, we won't fix any single item under 1,000, 2,000 or something like that. And that's worked great since I've started doing that.
good. And I think as a buyer's agent, if you're putting informational purposes only, it's such a gray area that the sellers think that you're buying it as is and you have no right out of that contract. So make sure, like Scott says, overemphasize what you're trying to get, through in the contract rather than.
And I know what they're doing too. If I'm a buyer side, you don't want to scare the seller off. And so
Right.
you're trying to be
Kind of
nebulous
coy.
about it. But guess what? That never really works out that well.
No.
I mean, when you really want, you don't want to put your buyer in a position, hey, they're saying you're buying this out. Well, I thought we always had the right to get out. Well, we didn't really say that. That's going to be your problem.
So when you represent the seller and you get a purchase agreement that says it's for informational purposes only, can you counter back that at the time of the property inspection resolution addendum, that only option, I think is what, A, the buyer accepts a property as is? Can you actually write that in the counter, that that's the only option that they're allowed to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Or you can
that's
say
what counters
something
are
that
for,
buyer
right?
understands they're buying the house as is and earnest deposit will be non-refundable or something of that nature too. So you can do some more clarification. in
Counters
that
are
section.
counter terms and add more in. So you're clarified it as to where you're at.
So two more things.
Okay.
The inspection addendum, what is it called? It tells you which inspections
Right.
you're going to have completed. So there's that form in the authorization for inspections. So it kind of tells you which inspections your buyers want to have completed during this process, during that 14-day time period. It is a guide. It is not set in stone. So your buyers have the right to go in and actually do other inspections, even if they weren't checked on that list, because the contract opens it up and says they can inspect everything. It's just a guideline and a courtesy for that agent. Now, it does not limit you to those inspections.
Right. And if you want to limit them to those inspections, you're going to have to bring it back into your main purchase agreement, right? You're going to have to say, here's the only things that they can do under that purchase agreement if you want to lock it in. Now, remember, that potentially opens it up to a underwriter at a bank requesting those inspections and, providing it to an appraiser that could create an issue there. So it's a double-edged sword as to what you want to do with it, because the whole point of this was frankly to try to open this thing up and say, hey, buyer, figure out everything you want about this house and either buy it or don't buy it. But there's the draw on the seller side, the listing agent side, of course, to figure out, well, what do they really want to do and what do you want them to do? And so you got to figure out how far you want to go with any of that stuff and how much you want to make it part of the contract or just leave it up and kind of as a negotiation.
And then lastly, the radon. This has come up as well. So if you have a radon inspection done and it comes in above 4.0, that seller's no longer agreed to mitigate it in the
Automatically,
contract.
yeah.
Yes.
It's for
So you would
negotiation.
have to negotiate those terms again. So I hate kind of beating a dead horse here and telling you guys what you probably already know, but we have not been able to do many inspections since this contract has changed. So we need to make sure you guys are aware, because we're seeing these issues come up on a daily basis right now because inspections are happening. And these buyers agents aren't aware that that radon's not going to be required to be mitigated anymore by the sellers after a 4.0 reading. So
Yeah, what it says now is it just says, hey, if it's under 4, buyer has to accept it. They don't have the right to ask for it. They're accepting that it's okay under 4. If it's above 4, then it comes back to that buyer to go, do I want to request that they mitigate, or are we going to, negotiate that out? But the seller's no longer locked in and automatically required to mitigate.
yes, Trish.
Do you know if after a radon inspection, and let's say a buyer had several inspections that they wanted and then decided to walk away, if so they walked away and we didn't ask why, but they had a radon inspection, is the person who did the radon inspection, if it came back high, do they have to report it to the state? And then do we eventually have to know, or does the seller eventually have to know?
So the question is if someone does a radon inspection and it comes in higher, are they automatically required to send it to this disclosed? Well, send it to the state was your question.
The radon company.
Right. Does the radon company have to do that?
I have not been.
I don't think so.
No.
There are states that require it. Nebraska is not one of them that requires it because they don't have a department for that.
Not yet.
Yeah. So no, it wouldn't be, but of course it would be information that you'd now have. And if the contract doesn't go through, you're now in a position of having to disclose it because now you know your radon's high. Other questions about this? Maggie, anything on Zoom? Okay. Anyone confused about any of the questions that were asked that we needed to clarify what they were being asked? Because it's too late. We're
I
moving
think
on.
we're good.
Okay.
All right.
It was dicey there for a minute. but
Okay. Heather, did we have anything else on any of that? Any
Not
other
on that, but I've got
clarification?
a couple more things that I could talk by.
Please
before,
do.
if that's okay. So don't forget E&O insurance. You guys are getting reminders for those in the mail right now. Do not pay it. We cover your guys' E&O insurance, whether you're Iowa or Nebraska, we will cover you both. So do not pay for the state certificate that they're sending out to you. What's that? Yep, it gets billed monthly to you. It's a $17 that's on your monthly bill. Also, if you were licensed in 2021, a lot of you guys don't understand or know this. If you're Nebraska only, you have to renew your license this year. Your deadline's like November 24th or 26th or something like that. Is it the 31st? Okay. And then also the state mandated or the NAR requirement of ethics. You have to take that every 2 years.
Right.
Mark Wainers is going to teach 2 of those classes here at Village Point and on Zoom coming up. If you haven't taken those, you might want to get those in your schedule. And then the teams class, if you've joined a team or started a team, you have to take that team class within 6 months of joining that team and renew it every 4 years. And Mark is teaching those classes as well. One is today from 1 to 4, and then you can check his schedule about those other ones coming up too.
And online is available for this stuff too. So don't let your license go out just because you couldn't find classes. Dick?
Is there any way to protect the buyer's earnest deposit?
Is there any way to protect the buyer's earnest deposit?
Yes.
Don't make one.
Okay.
I mean, if you really want to protect it, make it as low as possible, that they're enough to walk away from it, or give 0. Outside of that, you're still going to be required in that situation to get something agreed to by buyer and seller for money to
Under law,
release.
they have to have an earnest deposit.
That's a good point. As Heather, you could also say things like, we will make our earnest deposit after we've done our inspection, after it's acceptable. That'd be one way of doing it too.
Thank you.
Right. There's that's a misnomer that you need to have an earnest deposit to have a valid contract. That does not exist. There's plenty of consideration in a real estate purchase agreement without an earnest deposit. Shelley?
Okay, I have to leave early. That's why I'm going to interject.
Perfect.
And Vince asked me to get this out as much as I possibly can. I am leaving to go out of town for Thanksgiving. So I have a really heavy packed 16 days of training. And just so you guys know that you do get continuing ed credit for any of my classes that you take. They're 1 hour. And how that works is if you take the class, before I leave the building, Jay Brown and Christy both get the list of people that had come in. Okay, just so you guys know. Now, sometimes you may take a class and we have it in the calendar. It's listed as one thing, and then Christy may change to something else. Don't panic. It's okay. And you can take the same class over and over and over and still get that 1 hour of continuing ed. So today, right at 10 o'clock, we're doing Paragon basics. So if you need to get brush up on that. And then after that, it's a CMA. The most important thing is Saturday. I am doing 2 classes, 10 to 11 AdWorks. And then I'm also at 11:30, I'm doing contract to close buyer and seller. So that's this coming Saturday. So be sure to jump on the calendar schedule and join. And it looks like maybe there needs to be a clarification. Scott made a funny look when I was talking about continuing ed.
It was just something Heather said.
Okay.
I was like, what is she talking about?
All right, here you guys go.
One thing that you can do is you can go to the website, put in your information. This is the Nebraska Real Estate Commission. It'll tell you what you've done, how many classes you need and what classes you need. That doesn't include the NAR requirement for an ethics course, but it'll tell you everything that you need to keep your state license going. So that's one thing to look at. Jay's going to come. Of course you do.
I'm going to have to read it.
You're going to have to read it.
If seller's agent asks buyer not to tell them anything from the inspection, that is for information purpose only, the buyer walks away, is the seller/listing agent still responsible for what was found on the inspection?
Not if they don't know it, but they also can't ignore it. So there was a real estate commission disciplinary action that came down against an agent, I think last year, maybe 2 years ago now. And they had sent the buyer's agent, even though they were told not to, buyer's agent sent the home inspection report to the listing agent. The listing agent goes, I'm not looking at it, didn't look at it, and put the house up for sale, didn't disclose any of the stuff that was found on the home inspection report. And the real estate commission said, I'm sorry, if you get it, you can't ignore it. You have to look and you have to disclose it. And so as long as you don't know what's on there and no one has offered it to you, then there's nothing for you to disclose because you don't have that information. But you can't be willfully ignorant about it. That's the catch on it. Anything else? It was like a bar exam question on that one. Jay, let's go. Take that one too.
All right. Perfect. Well, Vince wanted me to go over, Colin Powell had just passed away. He had a decorated career, but he was well known for being the first African-American Secretary of State. So he had these 13 rules that got published back in 1989 in Parade magazine. So I was just going to go through these 13 rules with you guys. First one was, it ain't as bad as you think. It will look better in the morning. And so that reminded me though, when we had Shelley Klemke here last year to speak and things like that, is that we get paid to have lots of uncomfortable conversations. And so a lot of things come up in real estate that some people probably wait to talk to their buyers or sellers about. So to me, it's like, have that uncomfortable conversation. Is probably not going to be as bad as you think, just to kind of keep on moving forward. Number 2, get mad, then get over it. So I read a lot of books, and one book I've always read, I forget the name of it, but they always said, put a time limit. If you're going to get mad about something, put a time limit. Is it, I can be mad for an hour, I can be mad for 24 hours. But if you do, just put a time limit on it and move on. Number 3, avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. Number 4, it can be done. to me, that's nothing's impossible. If you watch any kind of motivational YouTube video with amputees or people with disabilities or there's literally anything can be done. People have proven us time and time again on what can be possible. So number 5, be careful what you choose. You may get it. To me, this comes down to focus, because you can focus mentally on good stuff or bad stuff. And that's that kind of law of attraction Vince always brings up, because you always think negatively, things aren't going to go your way. More than likely that's going to happen. If you think good thoughts, positive thoughts, things like that. Like we just started yesterday, our that mindset challenge. So we have 35 agents that are reading 4 pages a day, writing out affirmation every single day that we're going to be doing for 90 days. And then the challenge is for them is that they have to do it every single day to focus on good things. And then the thing is if they forget a day, then they just get kicked out of the group. So, and if you guys haven't done that, it's on the IQ system. So if you go to bhhsresource.com and then you just up in the top, you can just type in mindset. Gino Belfari came up with this. It's got a whole program that you can do. So I encourage you to do it. Let's see here. Number 6, don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. So number 7, you can't make someone else's choices. You shouldn't let someone else make yours. Number 8, check small things. And then I think for that, even with our what we're doing with mindset thing, it's just do the small things consistently. I think that's what we've been focusing on our real estate breakthrough classes. Vince brought it up a lot, is using the Ford method, just consistently building relationships through family and then bringing up family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Let's see. Share credit. So thank you guys for running the first half of this meeting for us.
Thanks, Jay.
Yep. Remain calm and be kind. Another thing I again read in a book, is a lot of times things can be difficult, but I've always tried to remember this is when somebody tells me something I don't want to hear, I usually mentally count like to 5 slowly before I try to respond, which helps. And then you see all the memes out there on Facebook and stuff. Be kind. You don't have any idea what that other person's going through. And even in our class, I said, when you're making calls to people and they're being rude and things like that, you have no idea if somebody just lost a loved one, somebody's going through cancer, or they have their kids that are in the military that are serving overseas. You have no idea what somebody else is going through. So always be kind. Number 11, have a vision and then be demanding. And I think that's why we focus so much on dream boards, because if you don't visually have something in front of you, something that you can focus on and have a vision on, it's hard for it to happen. And then number 12, don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. And number 13, perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. And I think that's a great one, because I think that's what we have here. That's kind of our culture here, is we always have a ton of optimism and things that are going on. So those are the top 13. The only other thing I wanted to mention with anybody that the real estate breakthrough videos, if you go to bhhsambagentTools.com, we're putting all the videos on there. So we have week 1 and week 2, and then I should get week 3 and 4 for Maggie, sometime in the next week. And then if anybody can join, we're down to our last 2 weeks. So we have Leanne Sotek that's going to be up from Sarpy County. So we're excited to have her. She's really heavily involved in building through networking and community involvement. So that's what she'll be speaking on. And then the last week we have Megan Owens and Jessica Dubinsky that are going to be speaking on our last week next November 11th. Outside of that, that's all I have.
Perfect. Christy, what do we have coming up?
We've got a Thanksgiving luncheon.
Thanksgiving luncheon. That's going to be.
It's going to be Thursday, November 18th
Okay.
at 11:30. We would love anybody that wants to participate to bring a dish. We're going to start getting signups, and we'll kind of categorize, whether it's a side, a sweet potato casserole, a green bean casserole. We may ask you to cook a turkey. You may be one of those lucky people. But we're going to be working on the details, and we'll get some stuff out to you guys to sign up.
Anything else for right now? Good.
We have a good guy award.
We have a good guy award. Is Josh here?
Do not see Josh.
Maybe we'll continue it for next time. So Josh can carry on as a good guy for one more time. TJ, any Husker updates that we should know of? Thanks. You're always helpful. Bill?
Realtor Ring Day, first Friday in December. Our spots are only about 20% full, so go to omaharealtors.com.
Can they guarantee the 60-mile-an-hour winds every time you do that?
We put it in for those, we haven't heard back.
Okay.
The worse the weather, the better we do.
That sounds about right.
What?
It's red.
Yeah. These weren't charged.
Okay, one last thing. Right now in masterminds,
No,
we're
it's
really
on.
focusing on your goals for next year. We've been doing a lot of the 136 processes. So if you're not aware of what that is, Vince talks about this a lot in different mastermind groups. I know Jay's taught about it in his class, but the 136 process is what's that one goal that you're trying to attain that year? You know, what kind of production are you trying to do? And then also break it down into how many units you want to accomplish that year. So you can focus on that goal. 3 are the 3 things that you're going to do to accomplish that goal. So, you know, maybe get your CRM in place, do some more pop buys or a client party. And then the 6 things are the things that you're going to stop doing, the things that get in your way, checking email 16 times a day, sitting on Facebook half the afternoon, stuff like that. So we'll see if Gina can maybe attach this to the email when she sends out the notes on today's meetings. But if
My
you have
flow
them-
chart.
yeah, with your flow chart, of course. But you know, it's just ways to get yourself prepared for the first of the year. If you guys aren't doing your prospecting and those daily activities right now, you're going to see those results come January and February. So we want to make sure you guys are set up to be the most successful agents you can be come the first of the year. So anything that we can do to help you get there, we're here to help.
Perfect. Thank you. Be well. God bless.
Eat some food.
Get some breakfast.